Freedom doesn't arrive when life finally obeys you. Freedom arrives the moment you stop wrestling life into submission. Most people spend their days trying to control the wind, trying to command the ocean, trying to hold time in their hands. And when the wind refuses, when the ocean rises, when time moves forward anyway, they call it failure. But the truth is simpler. Life was never your enemy. Life was never something to defeat. Life is a river, and the only question is this: will you move with it, or will you drown trying to stop it? Anxiety is not the future. Anxiety is a cage you build from tomorrow, then you step inside it and call it reality. You pace back and forth between what might happen and what could go wrong, until you forget the one place where life is actually happening. Here, now. And if you're exhausted, it's not because life is too heavy, it's because your grip is too tight. You're trying to hold outcomes that were never meant to be held. You're trying to own people that were never meant to be owned. You're trying to control the unfolding of time, as if your mind can negotiate with the universe. And every time you tighten your grip, you lose a little more of your peace. When you stop caring, life begins to flow naturally. But listen carefully. Stop caring does not mean you stop loving. It does not mean you stop showing up. It does not mean you become cold or careless. It means you stop clinging. It means you stop gripping. It means you stop feeding fear with your attention. It means you stop treating every uncertain moment like a threat. Because the moment you stop caring in the way fear cares, you begin to care in the way wisdom cares. And wisdom does not panic. Wisdom does not chase. Wisdom does not beg. Wisdom does not control. Wisdom watches. Wisdom breathes. Wisdom acts. Then wisdom releases. There is a place inside you that does not react. A place that watches the storm without becoming the storm. You've felt it before. Maybe for a second. Maybe in the quiet right before you fall asleep. Maybe in the stillness after you've cried. Maybe in a moment when you were so present you forgot to worry. That place is not loud. It does not argue. It does not demand certainty. It simply remains, still, clear, unmoved. And the path of inner mastery is nothing more than returning to that place, again and again, until it becomes your home. In the spirit of Buddhist wisdom and the discipline of Shaolin stillness, you learn a different definition of strength. Strength is not domination. Strength is not control. Strength is self-mastery, the ability to remain calm when the mind wants to panic, the ability to stay open when fear wants to close you, the ability to release when the ego wants to grip. Because the ego believes control is safety, but the soul knows something deeper. Safety is awareness. Safety is presence. Safety is trust in the unfolding. And once you learn that, you no longer need life to be perfect to be at peace. You become the kind of person who can walk through uncertainty without losing yourself. Today, I will give you 7 principles, simple in words, deep in effect. These are not tricks. These are not hacks. These are not quick fixes. These are ways of seeing, ways of relating, ways of training your mind so that your peace is no longer dependent on other people's behavior, on timing, on outcomes, on approval, on control. If you live these principles, you will not become careless. You will become unbothered, not because nothing ever happens, but because nothing has the power to steal your center. Most people think the problem is life, but the problem is not life. The problem is attachment. The problem is the mind's insistence that things must go a certain way for you to be okay. And the more you insist, the more you suffer, because reality does not bend to insistence. Reality bends to surrender. Reality opens when you create space. And that is why the first lesson is always this: let go, not because you are weak, but because you are wise. Imagine life as the ocean. You can't command the waves to stop. You can't negotiate with the tide. You can't tell the storm to be gentle, but you can learn to float. You can learn to breathe. You can learn to read the currents. You can learn to trust your own ability to move with what comes. The ocean is not against you. The ocean is just the ocean. But the person who tries to fight every wave will feel like they are being attacked. The person who relaxes into skill will feel like they are being carried. The difference is not the ocean. The difference is your relationship with it. Now let's begin. The first principle is this: fear is a seed, and whatever you plant will grow. Fear is not only a feeling. Fear is a lens, a filter, a silent decision about what reality means. When fear is planted in your mind, it changes how you interpret everything. A text message becomes a threat. A pause becomes rejection. A mistake becomes disaster. A delay becomes proof that life is falling apart. And once fear becomes your lens, you begin to live as if what you fear has already happened. You rehearse your failure. You mourn your future. You shrink your energy. You act from defense instead of creation. And slowly, without realizing it, you make your world smaller. Look at how fear works. Fear of losing your job makes you tense. You stop expressing ideas. You overthink every email. You become rigid. And that rigidity can make you less effective, less visible, less confident. Fear of abandonment makes you cling. You ask for reassurance. You question love. You interpret silence as betrayal. And that pressure becomes heavy. It creates distance. And you call it fate. But it is not fate. It is the seed you watered. Fear does not predict your future. Fear shapes your behavior. And behavior shapes your life. In Buddhist thought, the mind is like soil. The soil does not judge the seed, it simply grows whatever is planted. If you plant anger, you grow anger. If you plant suspicion, you grow suspicion. If you plant gratitude, you grow gratitude. If you plant calm, you grow calm. The soil does not ask if the seed is true. The soil only asks one question: do you keep watering it? And most people water fear every day, with attention, with overthinking, with catastrophic imagination, with endless what if, with replaying conversations, with scanning for danger. And then, they wonder why their inner world feels like a forest of thorns. You are not helpless in your own garden. You are the gardener. You choose what you plant. You choose what you water. This does not mean you never feel fear. Fear will come, but when fear comes, you do not have to worship it. You do not have to obey it. You can acknowledge it, then plant something beside it. Plant steadiness, plant patience, plant trust. Plant the intention to remain present. Because the way you transform fear is not by fighting it like an enemy. The way you transform fear is by growing something stronger than it. Here is a quiet practice. The moment you feel fear rising, ask yourself, what seed am I watering right now? Am I watering panic, or am I watering peace? Am I feeding the story that I will be abandoned, or am I feeding the truth that I can stand on my own? Am I feeding the belief that life is unsafe, or am I feeding the awareness that this moment is survivable? In that question, you reclaim power. Because you stop being a victim of the seed, you become the one who chooses. And let me make this very clear. You do not control what comes into your mind, but you do control what you cultivate. You do not control what thoughts appear, but you do control which ones you build a home for. The mind will throw seeds at you all day. Fear seeds, doubt seeds, comparison seeds, resentment seeds. But you are not obligated to plant them. You can let them fall and walk away. That is mastery, not the absence of fear, but the presence of choice. The second principle is this: real power is surrender. The world will tell you power is control. Power is dominance. Power is the ability to force the outcome you want. But anyone who has lived long enough knows the more you try to control everything, the more fragile you become. Because control is built on one secret belief: if I can't guarantee it, I'm not safe. And life does not offer guarantees. Life offers movement. Life offers change. Life offers seasons. Life offers uncertainty. So the person who cannot surrender will always feel unsafe. They will always feel threatened because they are trying to build a stable house on moving water. Surrender is not weakness. Surrender is clarity. Surrender is the moment you stop arguing with what is. It is the moment you stop treating reality like an enemy. It is the moment you stop clenching your jaw at the universe. It is the moment you say, I will do my part, but I will not destroy myself, trying to own what cannot be owned. Imagine holding sand in your hand. If your palm is open, the sand rests there. If you squeeze, the sand slips through your fingers. The tighter you grip, the faster you lose. This is how relationships work. This is how outcomes work. This is how timing works. This is how life works. The clenched fist loses. The open hand holds, not by force, by space. At the temple, a student once asked the master, "How do I stop losing control?" The master did not answer with words. He took a cup and filled it with water. Then he ran. As he ran, the water spilled. The student laughed. The master stopped. He held the cup perfectly still. The water became calm. Then he asked, "Which one is control?" The student said, holding it still. The master shook his head. Control is not stillness. Control is skill. The runner who can run without spilling is not controlling the water. He is controlling himself. That is surrender. You cannot control the water of life. You can control your grip, your posture, your breath, your response. Surrender means you stop trying to control what is outside your command, and you focus your discipline where it belongs. Your mind, your actions, your energy, your attention. Most people spend their attention trying to manage everything else. They want to manage people's moods. They want to manage outcomes. They want to manage the future. And they neglect the one thing that determines their peace, their relationship to the present. Surrender returns your power to the only place it ever belonged. When you surrender, you do not lose strength. You lose tension. You lose the constant inner friction of insisting that life should be different right now. And the moment friction ends, clarity begins. Opportunities appear. Solutions arise. People respond differently. Your mind becomes sharper. Because anxiety is mental noise, and surrender turns down the noise. The world becomes the same, but you become different. And that changes everything. The third principle is this. Anxiety belongs to tomorrow. Peace belongs to now. Anxiety cannot breathe in the present moment. It requires time travel. It requires imagination. It requires the mind to leave the body and build a future where you are unsafe. That is why anxiety feels so real. Because your mind paints it with detail. It gives it images. It gives it sound. It gives it dialogue. It gives it a timeline. And then your nervous system reacts as if that future is happening right now. Your heart races. Your stomach tightens. Your shoulders rise. Your breathing becomes shallow. And you call it intuition. But it is not intuition. It is your body responding to a movie. In Buddhist mindfulness, the path back to peace is always the same. Return to breath, return to body, return to this moment. Not because you are ignoring problems, but because you are refusing to suffer twice. There is only one moment that asks for your action. This one. The future does not ask for action. The future asks for preparation. But preparation is not panic. Preparation is calm planning. Planning does not require anxiety. Planning requires clarity. And clarity only exists in presence. Here is a truth that will change the way you understand worry. Worry feels like work. It feels like you are doing something. It feels like you are preventing disaster by thinking about it. But worry is not work. Worry is a ritual of fear. It is the mind's way of pretending it has control. It is mental pacing, like an animal trapped in a cage, running in circles, not moving forward. The The master trains a different habit. When the mind says, "What if?" he asks, "What is?" When the mind runs forward, he returns to breath. When the mind demands certainty, he returns to presence. Not because he is naive, but because he understands. The only moment you can actually live is now. And the only moment you can actually influence is now. Every time you return, you train your nervous system. You teach it a new message. Safety is not in certainty. Safety is in awareness. Safety is in the ability to be here without collapsing. Try this right now. Notice your breath. Do not force it, just notice it. Notice the air entering. Notice the air leaving. Notice the pause between. Now notice your body, your shoulders, your jaw, your hands. Where is the tension? Where is the grip? Let it soften, even slightly. This is not small. This is not useless. This is the doorway. Because peace does not come from thinking about peace. Peace comes from practicing presence. The fourth principle is this. Imagined fear is a heavy burden. Most of what exhausts you is not real. It is mental weight, invisible stones you carry all day. The mind can become a novelist that never stops writing disaster. And the tragedy is not that you imagine. Imagination is natural. The tragedy is that you believe. You treat thoughts like facts. You treat feelings like prophecies. You treat a temporary mood like a permanent truth. And then you walk through life under a storm that does not exist. Think of how often your mind creates suffering. You receive a short reply. Your mind writes 10 reasons it means rejection. You see someone look away. Your mind writes a story that you are being judged. You make a small mistake. Your mind predicts you will fail forever. You hear a rumor. Your mind builds an entire future around it, and your body reacts. Stress hormones rise, energy drains, sleep becomes difficult. All because of a story, not because of reality. The practice here is simple, not easy, but simple. You ask one question, is this happening right now, or is it only a thought? This question cuts through illusion like a blade. If it is happening right now, you can act. If it is only a thought, you can release. Most of the time you will realize nothing is happening right now. You are safe in this moment. The danger is in your mind. The pain is in your imagination. And when you see that clearly, you stop feeding it. At the temple, a student once saw a rope in the corner and screamed. He believed it was a snake. His heart raced. His body shook. The master looked at him calmly and said, "Bring me the snake." The student hesitated. The master walked over and picked up the rope. "Your suffering was real," the master said, "but the snake was not. This is the human condition. We suffer real pain from unreal threats. We burn real energy on imagined futures. We ruin real moments with fictional disasters. And the way out is not more thinking. The way out is seeing. You do not need to become numb. You need to become discerning. Discernment means you separate thought from reality. You separate fear from fact. You separate the story from the moment. And when you do that, you become free. Not because life is perfect, but because your mind is no longer your prison. The fifth principle is this. Control blocks faith. You cannot clutch the steering wheel with white knuckles and call it trust. Faith is not a religious word here. Faith is a psychological posture. Faith is the ability to do your part and allow the outcome to unfold without panic. Faith says, "I will act with presence. I will prepare. I will show up. But I will not torture myself trying to guarantee the result." Control says, "If I cannot guarantee it, I cannot relax." And that mindset will destroy your peace. Because life is not designed for guarantees. Control creates an illusion of safety, but under that illusion is fear. And the more you control, the more you signal to life, "I do not trust." You micromanage conversations. You micromanage timing. You micromanage how people see you. You micromanage your image. You micromanage your future. And your nervous system stays on alert because control never ends. There is always another detail, another possibility, another risk. Control is a bottomless pit. Faith is the ground. Think of planting a seed. You can choose good soil. You can water the seed. You can give it sunlight. You can protect it from harm, but you cannot pull it out of the ground to make it grow faster. That is what control does. It pulls on life. It shakes the roots. It demands results on your schedule, and then you wonder why you feel exhausted and why nothing feels stable. Faith is not laziness. Faith is maturity. Faith says, I do my part, then I let time do its part. Faith respects the rhythm. In your own life, you can practice this. You can work hard. You can apply for the job. You can practice the skill. You can show up in the relationship. You can have the conversation. You can take responsibility. Then you release the outcome. You release the need to control how someone feels about it. You release the need to control how fast it happens. You release the need to control the entire story. Because your job is not to control the whole world. Your job is to live your part with integrity. When you control less, your faith grows. And when faith grows, your nervous system calms. Because trust is not an idea. Trust is a felt sense. It is the deep belief that even if the outcome changes, you can adapt. Even if the plan breaks, you can rebuild. Even if you lose something, you remain. That is the kind of faith that makes you unshakable, and it begins the moment you loosen your grip. The sixth principle is this. Letting go is how you begin to grow up. Anxiety shrinks you. It makes you cautious. It makes you hide. It makes you avoid. It makes you silence your voice and soften your dreams. It makes you live small, not because you lack ability, but because you fear pain. And when you live small long enough, you begin to forget who you could have been. Worry does not protect you. Worry limits you. Worry reduces your world until the only thing left is your own mind. And that is not safety. That is imprisonment. Look closely. When you worry, you do not expand. You contract. You contract your goals. You contract your relationships. You contract your courage. You contract your imagination. You say no to opportunities before they even arrive. You reject yourself before someone else can reject you. You play defense in a game that requires creation. And then you wonder why life feels empty. It is not because life is empty. It is because worry has starved you of movement. Growing up spiritually means you stop trying to avoid every discomfort. You stop believing you need perfect conditions to begin. You stop demanding certainty before you act. You learn to move through fear instead of obeying it. Letting go is not giving up. Letting go is releasing the false belief that worry is necessary. Letting go is returning your energy to life. Here is a powerful question. How much energy do you spend each day on what you cannot control? How many hours do you donate to imagined failure? How many moments do you sacrifice to the fear of being misunderstood, rejected, replaced? That energy is your life, and every day you waste it, you are giving your life away to shadows. Imagine your energy as water in a jar. You wake up with a full jar. You can spend it on building, on learning, on loving, on creating, on healing, or you can leak it into worry. Worry is a leak. It drains you slowly, quietly, until you look up and realize you are tired, but you did nothing meaningful. That is one of the cruelest things about anxiety. It exhausts you without moving you forward. Letting go closes the leak, and when the leak closes, you suddenly have strength again. You have focus again. You have clarity again. You have patience again. You have creativity again, and you realize the power you were looking for was never outside. It was trapped in your grip. The seventh principle is this. Life begins to flow when you step aside, when you stop interfering with fear, when you stop forcing timing, when you stop pushing people into versions they are not ready to become, when you stop checking, replaying, chasing, gripping. The river becomes clear when you stop throwing stones into it. The mind becomes quiet when you stop stirring it with panic, and the heart becomes lighter when you stop holding everything as if you must carry the entire world alone. There are signs you are gripping too tightly. You check your phone repeatedly, not because you need information, but because you need reassurance. You replay conversations, not because you want wisdom, but because you want control. You try to read someone's mind, not because you are intuitive, but because you are afraid. You push decisions before they are ready. You demand certainty before you can breathe. These are not habits of strength, these are habits of fear. And fear is always impatient. Fear always rushes. Fear always wants a guarantee right now. But the master understands something different. Waiting is not weakness. Waiting is trust in motion. Waiting is the ability to remain whole without immediate proof. Waiting is the capacity to hold uncertainty without collapsing. It is one of the highest forms of discipline, because the mind will scream, "Fix it now," and the master will breathe and say, "Not yet." The mind will scream, "Control it now," and the master will soften and say, "I will respond when clarity arrives." This is what makes a person powerful, not aggression, not force, but the ability to remain calm and awake in the middle of uncertainty. Imagine holding a butterfly in your hand. If you squeeze, you destroy it. If you open your hand, it may fly, it may stay, it may return, but either way, you remain intact. That is the posture of inner freedom. You love without gripping. You care without clinging. You act without desperation. You breathe without bargaining. And from that posture, life begins to move with you, not against you. Now, let's deepen these principles. Because a lesson is not enough. The mind will understand, then it will forget. The body will feel calm, then it will return to its old habits. That is why discipline is needed, not harshness, discipline. The gentle repetition of wisdom until it becomes your reflex. Let's return to the first principle again. Fear is a seed, and let's go deeper. Fear does not only grow into worry, fear grows into identity. When you water fear long enough, you become someone who expects bad outcomes. You become someone who prepares for loss more than for success. You become someone who cannot relax even when life is quiet. And that is the tragedy. Even in moments of peace, the fearful mind invents threats because it has been trained to live in tension. So the real practice is not just choosing different thoughts. The real practice is choosing a different identity. Instead of, "I am someone who worries," you become, "I am someone who notices worry." That shift is everything, because the observer is not the storm. The observer is the sky. The observer is the mountain. The observer is the space. Thoughts can pass, fear can pass, anxiety can pass, but you remain. This is the core of mindfulness. Not controlling thoughts, not fighting thoughts, but recognizing you are not your thoughts. You are the awareness that sees them. And the moment you see fear as a seed, not as truth, you stop watering it. You let it be, then you choose. You choose to plant something else, a deeper breath, a steadier posture, a kinder interpretation, a calmer response. And slowly, your mind becomes a garden where peace can grow. Now return to the second principle again. Real power is surrender. Why is surrender so difficult? Because the ego believes surrender equals humiliation. The ego believes surrender equals defeat. The ego thinks if you don't control, you will be hurt. But surrender is not humiliation. Surrender is wisdom. It is the recognition of reality, and reality is this. There are things you can influence, and there are things you cannot. When you stop fighting what you cannot, you gain energy to influence what you can. That is strategic, that is intelligent, that is strength. A student once tried to force a bamboo stalk to grow faster by pulling it. The stalk broke, and the student cried. The master said, "You did not break the bamboo, you broke your relationship with time, because time cannot be forced, growth cannot be forced, unfolding cannot be forced, and your life is always unfolding, even when you cannot see it, even when it is slow, even when it feels uncertain. Surrender is the willingness to trust the invisible work. This applies to relationships too. You cannot force someone to understand you. You cannot force someone to love you the way you want. You cannot force someone to heal on your schedule. And the moment you stop forcing, you stop suffering. You can still speak. You can still express. You can still set boundaries. But you stop gripping. You stop begging. You stop chasing. Because chasing is a confession of fear. It says, I do not believe I am enough without this outcome. And surrender says, I will love deeply, but I will not abandon myself. Now return to the third principle again. Anxiety belongs to tomorrow. Peace belongs to now. Think of how many times you have survived. Think of how many disasters you imagined that never happened. Think of how many sleepless nights you spent on a future that dissolved. Anxiety is a false prophet. It predicts pain and calls it preparation. It predicts failure and calls it realism. It predicts abandonment and calls it caution. But anxiety is not wisdom. Anxiety is fear wearing the mask of intelligence. Wisdom is present. Wisdom is quiet. Wisdom does not shout. Wisdom does not rush. Wisdom does not catastrophize. Wisdom asks, what is needed right now? Not what could happen in 10 different futures. Not what might go wrong in 6 months. Right now, what is needed? Sometimes what is needed is action. Sometimes what is needed is rest. Sometimes what is needed is a conversation. Sometimes what is needed is patience. But you cannot know what is needed if your mind is always in tomorrow. That is why presence is not spiritual decoration. Presence is practical power. Try this. Whenever anxiety appears, don't argue with it. Don't try to reason with it. Just return. Return to your breath. Return to your senses. Feel your feet on the ground. Hear the sounds around you. Feel your chest rising and falling. Notice what is happening right now, not what might happen later. And then ask, is there something I must do in this moment? If yes, do it calmly. If no, release. This is how you reclaim your nervous system. This is how you stop being dragged by imagination. Now return to the fourth principle again. Imagined fear is heavy. Many people don't realize they are living in constant mental rehearsal. They rehearse conversations before they happen. They rehearse arguments. They rehearse rejection. They rehearse loss. They rehearse betrayal. They rehearse worst-case scenarios. And they call it being prepared. But it is not preparation. It is self-poisoning. Because every rehearsal activates stress in the body. And the body doesn't know the difference between real and imagined danger. The body only knows signals, and your mind is sending danger signals all day. The practice is to separate thought from reality. Thought is a cloud, reality is the sky. Thought is a wave, reality is the ocean. Thought is wind, reality is the mountain. The wind can be loud, the wave can be strong, the cloud can be dark, but the mountain remains, the ocean remains, the sky remains, and you can become like that. Not by becoming hard, but by becoming spacious. Spaciousness means you can hold a thought without becoming it. You can hold a feeling without drowning in it. You can witness fear without obeying it. That is what it means to be unbothered. It is not that nothing touches you. It is that nothing owns you. And the moment you remember that, you stop being frightened by your own mind. Now return to the fifth principle again. Control blocks faith. Control is the mind's attempt to guarantee comfort. But comfort cannot be guaranteed. The only guarantee is change. If you base your peace on controlling change, you will never be peaceful, because change will always find you. That is why faith is not a luxury. Faith is the only sane response to life. Faith is the willingness to live without needing guarantees. Faith is the ability to act fully, then release fully. Faith is what allows you to sleep. Faith is what allows you to breathe. Faith is what allows you to stay open. Many people confuse faith with passivity. That is not faith. Faith is not waiting for life to save you. Faith is doing your part with excellence, then trusting what is beyond you. Faith is disciplined surrender. It is surrender with responsibility. It is surrender with presence. It is surrender without laziness. And when you live that way, you become powerful. Because your power is no longer tied to outcomes. Your power is tied to your integrity. Now return to the sixth principle again. Letting go is growing up. Growing up means you stop looking for safety outside. You stop needing people to behave a certain way for you to be okay. You stop needing approval for you to feel worthy. You stop needing certainty for you to breathe. You stop needing control for you to feel safe. Because real adulthood is not age. Real adulthood is inner independence. The ability to regulate yourself. The ability to soothe yourself. The ability to remain grounded when things are uncertain. That is maturity. And maturity is freedom. And here is a hard truth. If you do not learn to regulate your own mind, you will spend your life trying to regulate the world. You will try to control people. You will try to control outcomes. You will try to control timing. You will try to control the future. But none of that is possible. So you will live in constant frustration. That frustration becomes anger. That anger becomes bitterness. That bitterness becomes a life that feels heavy. The way out is not controlling more. The way out is letting go more. Not letting go of responsibility, letting go of attachment, letting go of illusions, letting go of the belief that you must hold everything. Now return to the seventh principle again. Life flows when you step aside. Stepping aside means you stop interfering with fear. You stop trying to force. You stop trying to speed up time. You stop trying to manipulate people into giving you peace. You stop trying to be in control of everything. And what happens? Life moves. Things resolve. Clarity arrives. Opportunities appear. Not because you are lucky, but because you are no longer blocking the flow with tension. You are no longer stirring the water with panic. You allow things to settle, and when water settles, it becomes clear. This is why stillness is not weakness. Stillness is strength. Stillness is the ability to pause before reacting. Stillness is the gap where wisdom enters. Stillness is the space where you see clearly. And if you want to become unbothered, you must fall in love with that gap. Because in that gap, you are free. Now, let's build the training. Because principles become power only through practice. And this practice is simple. 3 steps, 3 movements, like a kata for the mind. Step 1. Notice the grip. Wherever you are, notice where you are gripping. Are you gripping an outcome? Are you gripping someone's approval? Are you gripping a fear? Are you gripping a timeline? Are you gripping the need to be understood? The moment you notice grip, you stop being unconscious. You become aware. Awareness is the first gate of freedom. Step 2. Release by 10%, not 100. 10. You are not trying to become a saint. You are training. Release your shoulders. Release your jaw. Release your breathing. Release the inner demand that this moment must be different. Release the need to fix everything right now. 10%. That small release changes your nervous system. It sends a message. I am safe enough to soften. And that message is powerful. Step 3. Return to what is real. Return to your breath. Return to your senses. Return to what you can actually do right now. One action, one step, one conversation, one decision. Or maybe no action. Maybe the action is rest. Maybe the action is patience. But whatever it is, you choose it from presence, not from panic. That is the difference. That is mastery. Do this 3-step training whenever you feel anxiety, whenever you feel triggered, whenever you feel the urge to control. Notice the grip. Release 10%. Return to what is real. It sounds simple, but simple is not easy. Simple is powerful. Simple is what masters repeat until it becomes instinct. Now, let's talk about identity. Because your identity determines your behavior, and your behavior determines your life. If you identify as someone who must control everything, you will suffer. If you identify as someone who is fragile, you will panic. If you identify as someone who needs constant reassurance, you will cling. If you identify as someone who cannot handle uncertainty, you will fear the future. But if you identify as someone who can remain present, you will become calm. If you identify as someone who can adapt, you will become strong. If you identify as someone who can let go, you will become free. So, who are you becoming? You are becoming the observer, the one who watches without drowning, the one who breathes before reacting, the one who chooses response over reaction, the one who can feel fear, yet remain steady, the one who can love deeply without gripping, the one who can care without clinging, the one who can work hard without obsession, the one who can trust without being passive, the one who can release without being indifferent. This is what it means to stop caring in the way fear cares. Fear cares with desperation. Fear cares with attachment. Fear cares with control. Fear cares with panic. But wisdom cares with presence. Wisdom cares with calm. Wisdom cares with boundaries. Wisdom cares with space. Wisdom cares with trust. When you shift from fear caring to wisdom caring, your entire life changes. Because you stop chasing peace, you become peace. And once you become peace, the world may still be loud, people may still be unpredictable, outcomes may still change, but you are no longer at war with life. You are no longer fighting shadows. You are no longer exhausting yourself by trying to hold what cannot be held. You are no longer sabotaging yourself with imagined fear. You are no longer shrinking under worry. You are no longer asking the world to stop moving. You are moving with it. Life isn't a fight to win. Life is a rhythm to move with. A rhythm of building and resting. A rhythm of effort and surrender. A rhythm of holding and releasing. A rhythm of doing your part and trusting the unfolding. And if you learn to move with that rhythm, you will discover a kind of freedom most people never taste. The freedom of being unbothered. So here is your final practice. Choose one thing you have been gripping with fear, one outcome you've been forcing, one person you've been chasing, one story you've been replaying, and for the next 24 hours, release your grip by 10%, not 100, 10. Let your shoulders drop. Let your jaw loosen. Let the breath deepen. Let the mind stop negotiating. And notice what happens when you stop squeezing life. You may discover that life does not collapse. Life opens. When you stop caring in the way fear cares, life begins to flow naturally. Not because the world becomes perfect, but because you become free. And freedom is not having everything. Freedom is needing less. Freedom is standing in the present with an open heart and empty hands, while the river carries you forward. If this spoke to you, write in the comments one thing you are willing to stop interfering with, one thing you release. And if you want more teachings like this, like the video, subscribe and share it with someone who is tired of holding the whole world in their mind. Keep walking, keep practicing, and remember this: the most powerful person is not the one who controls everything. The most powerful person is the one who can let go and still remain whole.